I don't have so many true close friends, but I consider myself lucky to call Scott Pannell one of them. And who then would be better for my 30th episode than him? Today we talk about all sorts of things, like the good, the dark and the beautiful, ephemeral experiences, hitchhiking, white kittens, balancing humility, validation, gatekeepers, the nature of memories, cancellation, self-confidence, and how it's all undeserved. Set?
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. Are you setting?
Yeah, and Amanda's sick.
Oh yeah, perfect.
And no one else has replied yet.
Hell yeah. Yes, I was just asking gents if... Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just say that you're going to do it then.
Tell them.
Tell them to stand down.
Too late.
Yeah.
Stand down! This reminds me of an airport, the sound. But it's quite nice somehow.
It's a bit soothing.
Yeah. It's like when you're sitting in an airport and it's this nice feeling where you're just waiting to be taken away. far away. Either you're going far away to... Like usually my airport experience is like I'm going far away to somewhere I want to go, or I'm going home after a long time in some other place. So it's always a nice feeling and you're just like kind of waiting. But I guess it can also be stressful.
I don't think I've had a nice wait in an airport since my trip from New Zealand here in the 2006. Are we recording this now?
Yes.
Maybe, oh.
Maybe cut out some...
some of the original shit. Yeah, I think I was in Singapore or something for a few hours.
Was it nice?
Yeah, it was actually nice.
That's good.
But every other journey since then has been absolute garbage. Like stress. Either feeling sick from food poisoning, feeling sick from...
fuck. Yeah, that makes it especially horrible.
And not having more than like an hour to stop over, kind of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sometimes we had to run. When we went to the US, we were really close on missing a flight. Or it felt like we had to run through the whole... It was like one of the really... I don't know if it was a pretty big airport. They had like golf carts and stuff driving around and we had to run through. Yeah. Also now when I got home from Font, I was gonna take the ferry from Rostock in Germany to Trelleborg. And I had like, on Google Maps, I was supposed to arrive like 45 minutes before the ferry. But then they were like rebuilding the port. So Google Maps led me the wrong way. And then somehow I like drove into like one of those pay motorways where you have to pay. And then I was so I paid, and then I was like driving in the opposite direction of the port.
Just going to Aarhus or something.
Yes. And then I had to turn around and I had to pay to get back out. And then I kept not finding it, just driving around. And then finally I got there when it was like 4 minutes left before it was gonna leave.
Yeah.
And this was like 3 PM. So if I had missed it, I would have had to wait until 7 the next morning. Or like try and drive through Denmark or something. It was really stressful.
Do they not go every hour from there?
No, not there.
Oh, weird.
I think maybe they go a bit more continually from Travemünde. It's a different port. No, I think they only went... I don't know. Maybe I would have found some, but it would have sucked.
Yeah.
Because it also costs some money and stuff. And there was this German lady just like, "You're supposed to be here 1 hour before."
Yeah.
And then he just waved me in, and I just got to park like like right on the side of the boat, like, and then they just
Behind
took
some
off.
trucks or something.
Yes, like in
Yikes.
front. I didn't even have a normal spot. I just like parked in there.
Should tell them they need better signs
Yeah,
or some shit.
yeah, it was really stressful. I had even like given up on making it, and then I just found the right way, and yeah. But it's strange with those like, or when you're traveling. I think it can be. Sometimes it can be nice to just the same way. I really enjoyed driving home, like 12 hours of just sitting. It's like
But meditative or something.
yeah, a
like,
bit meditative.
And you still have to pay attention to the road, I suppose.
Yeah, and like
Bust someone.
like the first 10 hours feel quite good, and the last 2 are like usually quite rough. You start to get really tired. Like they feel as long as the first 10.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to traveling.
Yeah, it can be cozy for sure.
Just sitting still for a really long time.
I guess it's just accepting that it's going to happen. Like, it reminds me, we were trying to go to Berlin 2018 maybe, for my 30th birthday. And we were meant to fly with EasyJet or one of these like cheap, shitty airlines.
Yeah.
And then we got to the airport and they were just like, nah, it's not happening. Like,
They just
yeah,
you had booked it and everything.
Yeah, it was booked and everything. But those cheap ones you can
get
you
in
can
the
fuck
terms
over
of
like
service they fuck
Yeah.
you over in every conceivable way.
And I think it was like we could go the next day, or they would pay for a bus or something. So we just took the bus, like, jumped on a random
From Sweden
Flix
to
bus.
Berlin.
Yeah.
But
I think it went on that same path, maybe across the
with
on the ferry or something.
ferry, yeah.
But it was like 12 hours maybe. I think there was some problems on like an autobahn somewhere or some shit. So it took even longer than it was meant to.
Yeah.
And we were sitting above the toilet on the bus the whole way. So I remember like wrapping my face in the little curtain thing next to trying to sleep, and like, it just
terrible.
smelled like
I had also
absolute sewage.
one time I took a bus up to Oslo, and I was just you go into the booking thing, and then you can choose a spot. But I thought like you had to choose a spot. But apparently, if you don't choose one, you just get.
You can just go wherever you feel like it.
But so I thought like, I have to choose one. So I was looking which one is the cheapest, and I selected the cheapest one, and then I ended up paying to sit next to the toilet, like it was the cheapest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also like
It's a mistake.
couple hours. Yeah, it was. Not the best. Not the best. It was like no space.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really crammed in those buses, eh? It's like worse than flying, actually.
Yeah.
These days.
They're really bad.
But anyway, the whole point was like, once we just accepted, like, we're not getting on the flight, and everything felt annoying and stressful at the airport. Like, okay, we'll just go on the bus and sit there. It was actually really nice, apart from the stink.
Yeah.
To like see some countryside that you hadn't seen. They stop over in some places, and you can go and buy, pastries or whatever from the gas station or something.
Yeah.
So you can get out once in a while and like look around.
Yeah, I think it's actually because whenever you have to change plans, or when something unexpected happens, like if there is some road work or something, and you take like a different route, and maybe you take the wrong route. Like I've learned to just, because sometimes I can get a bit stressed out and think like, oh no, I'm losing all this time. But really, it can be quite nice to just like, I get to drive in the countryside of Germany
go
now.
off route a little bit.
And like drive past some little barn and everything. It's not so bad.
No, it's never the end of the world, I think.
No, it's probably better than driving just... because it's almost maybe like you wake up a little instead of just because you can almost get into a trance on the motorway, especially after so many hours. You just just I don't know,
stop paying attention to the surroundings.
I
I mean, it's not so often that you get to see that stuff. Like, I don't think I'll ever drive through those places again in my life. Like, there's a really low chance.
Yeah.
So it's a missed opportunity in some way to just zone out.
Yeah, but it is really like those places are special. I have one memory of we were driving home from Font, me and a friend. And it was also, for some reason, we were driving on like a smaller road, and we came to one of these little towns, and we just stopped at a like, what would you call it? Not a not a motel, but like there was like a small restaurant and some just by the road. Yeah, and we just had something to eat there, and like there was people sitting, and like for a small moment, or for a short time, you're just in this little world, in this little town,
and
then you like
little towns that you get to see is cool.
And then you just leave and never see any of it ever again.
Yeah.
I always find that, like even when I walk around in maybe Fontainebleau or anywhere like that, just like looking into the windows of some house and just seeing people in there, and you just think like, oh, they live their whole lives here, like in this, and then you just leave.
Yeah, especially these like really small towns, not like Font's still.
Yeah, I guess it's
pretty big area, but like if you're just driving through a countryside somewhere, it happens a lot in New Zealand, and it's like, you know, these one road towns and maybe 20 houses and a little shop or something. And you go into a cafe there and have some food or whatever. It's like the communities are so tight.
Yeah.
You just see how these people like interact with each other. And there's always some small like distinctive characteristic to how people are in these towns.
Yeah. I think there's something
cool
quite good about it that I sort of miss, which is like, or I don't know if I've, like, it seems like a very tight community, like everyone knows everyone. And I think that's can probably be both good and like taxing as well. But it's, I don't know. I've also been reading a thick Russian book, surprise, surprise, called, I don't know what it's called in English. T.G. Dawn in Russian. I don't know if it's pronounced that way, but it means like Don, the river. It's like a river in Russia, I think. It means like dawn flows calmly, basically. And I think it's classic in some way. It's like 3 parts.
Yeah.
I found it in my grandfather's basement.
And it's in Russian, the whole thing?
No.
Okay.
No, that would be, I'm not the...
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, that would be very difficult. No, it's all in Swedish. And I found like a bunch of interesting books in his basement. And he's passed away, so my grandma is like going through it, and so she just I can just go down there and look around every time, and I find some little interesting book I take with me. But in this one, it's also it's the life in like small Russian villages just before the First World War. And it's both, you get to see, you really get this small town feeling, maybe like extremely so, because it's like even further back. But it's also like a snapshot.
Then there's no like outside communication even, it's just...
Yeah, they're completely...
in that world, and then that's what they have.
Yeah, completely cut off.
Sure.
But also the culture is completely different, and the time is completely different, and yeah, it's quite cool to get to look back or just see.
What kind of phase was Russia in before I can't even think like how.
I don't quite know. They had like the Tsar regime.
Yeah, right.
How do you say regime? Regime. But there is still some like I think communism starts to like, at least in the book, there are some characters that are like part of the of this movement.
Yeah.
But it's not very big. It's like a very much a minority thing. But with this war, the First World War, I think it starts to, like, people start to become discontent. Because, I mean, I think the First World War was like one of the bloodiest ever, because they were still riding on horses with like swords.
Yeah.
Whilst some part of the army had like proper machine guns.
Yeah, they were still using like medieval tactics, but with kind of modern like weaponry.
Yeah, and so they just like rode into bullet storms, like, and actually this is like one of the most, like, I think I've read some pretty dark books.
Yeah.
But this one is really dark. But it's also fiction. It's like fiction mixed in with actual facts.
Yeah.
And some parts of it, he's like sort of fictionalized some historical figures, like some actual generals that was in the war and stuff, and I think he has like, it sort of blends together, but it's definitely fictional as well. And
I like that style though.
Yes.
Because then you wonder a little bit. It's not like you just know that it's fiction. It's like, maybe some of these facts could be real, or...
In some sense, it makes it more real. I think if you're a bit more historically like read than I am, I think you can really appreciate it, because then you recognize, like, they don't say exactly what role this character has. He's just like introduced, and so I think you can, like, different layers you can appreciate of it. But there's also these scenes that he described where like airplane comes in and bombs something, and like it's very vivid, and like he really describes like how horrific war is in many ways.
I was reading what's it called, excerpt? Like a little piece out of a book called Last Train from Hiroshima, I think. Something like that. Describing like what the nuclear bomb did to people who kind of survived for a few days afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's so busted, man. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what it is about nuclear stuff, but it gives me nightmares. Like, also watching that Chernobyl program.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it fucked me up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's creepy as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I want to read that book because morbid curiosity or whatever.
Last Train from Hiroshima.
I think that's what it's called. I'm going to check.
Yeah, there is something... I feel like there's something almost archetypical with the atomic bomb. It's like... It's something like with the end of the world, you feel like. It's just like the end, somehow.
Yeah.
There is this one anime... I think it's called like The Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah. I've also watched that.
Yeah, I think I cried.
Yeah, it was
It's very, very... Yeah. But somehow... Now it was a long time ago. But somehow it's also like so beautiful. Because it's like... Spoiler alert. It's like two... isn't it two kids that their parents are killed. And they have to...
Something like this.
And they like have to hide. And they try to take care of each other, but it's like impossible to survive in that climate, and they like starve to death or something.
Yeah, something pretty dark. I can't even remember the story now, but I remember like the feeling I had when I watched it.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know.
Time to rewatch it, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Because it's this mix of... This makes me think of many things, but someone said like, war is wonderful except for all the killing and destruction. Like, it does create the most extreme, intense feelings, and like you care for each other, and you try to like all of these things.
And innovations and...
Yeah. I guess that's like the beautiful part of this grave of the fireflies. They sort of capture that side, I think, and then you also have like it's just surrounded with all the darkness as well. It's
I mean, humans are designed to be fighting for their lives most of the time. If we look at how it used to be in evolution and stuff, so
yeah,
I guess on some level we kind of miss that and feel like we need it. That's why we're so fascinated with either war. Like some people are just like they want to start wars because they're that fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And if they have a position of power, or other people just want to watch animes about it and read and stuff.
Yeah, we do have a fascination with it, but it's also like we meaning is also connected to this thing with like conflict and being uncomfortable. Because if it's all easy, then we're not happy anyway.
Yeah, we crave the struggle.
Then we just like start messing things up to make it harder for ourselves. It's a very strange.
Start climbing things, which
we just try to find the hardest way up a rock, far out into the forest. It's humans are very strange. Very, very strange. I'm reading a Haruki Murakami book called, again, I'm not sure in English, but maybe like The Wind-Up Bird or something like this. You know,
Clockwork something. Oh.
Clockwork Bird. Like, you know a bird that you like wind up and then it's like does some sound
like
or
skirts
something.
Around or something. And,
I think it's called The Wind-Up Bird. No, The Bird That Winds Up the World or something like this.
They got a much more epic sounding.
Yes. And it's like quite it describes some quite like it's just a normal guy in a normal neighborhood, and then some strange things starts happening. I think it's like a classic Murakami book. It's just strange,
Just weird and obscure.
But then you start, and I talked to a friend about this because it's like you have some sort of image of what is normal. But I think that image is completely wrong. It's just like a huge simplification. Because everything is really strange. Like the way people, like the reasons why people do things or their motivations, and it's like really, I think if you wrote a story, like a completely realistic story in some sense, I think it would be like really, really strange.
Yeah.
Like why someone acted that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Like usually it's some strange reason. And it would make all of these stories seem, all of these like exciting stories seem all bland probably because reality is so strange when it all comes around. I think
I don't think people share their like really deep motivations for doing stuff so often. You can say like, yeah, it's for money or it's for love or it's for something, but usually there's some really weird.
Yeah, and people are so complicated and irrational also. Sometimes, I don't know where I heard this, but it was someone, I think it was lifting through America or something. And he said if he drove like a longer distance with someone, like it started out just talking a bit to be, how do you say, courteous?
Cordial?
Courteous.
Yeah.
To be courteous.
Standard small talk.
Yeah. If someone picks you up, you don't want to sit and be completely quiet, like
so
they're
gonna think
like psychopath just staring out. So it just started like that, and if it was like a longer ride, like the last half hour, he described it as the driver you kind of start realizing that I'm about to drop this person off in half an hour, and we will it's the same thing as before. We will never meet again. It's like, so they started like just telling him things from their life, like secrets or just some like things you don't normally tell
Yeah.
for different reasons. And that must be very special to just hear that side of people. Because and it's also interesting that people want to share that stuff. Because I think I guess that's the role of psychologists. Like that
to have someone
just to say it, like
and someone who you're not like attached to in some way.
Yeah, and that it doesn't have like not necessarily consequences in the
exactly.
social world to admit it or say it or whatever. I think it can be very cathartic. Catharsis. Cathartic.
Must be cathartic.
Yeah.
I don't know. English is turned to shit.
Yeah. Just to speak about something. Just to have it said. I think that's it's powerful. Just talking.
Yeah, it's interesting how fast people open up when they're in that kind of situation. Like, it's such a non-existent hitchhiking culture in Sweden, eh? Like, no, you don't pick people up on the side of the road here.
No.
But in New Zealand, it's very common.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe we even talked about that at some point. Maybe it's in the other podcasts.
Yeah.
You'll have to go through them and see if we've said the same shit, edit them out.
Listening to the archives.
But I haven't done a huge amount of hitchhiking in New Zealand, but when I have, people, the same thing happens actually.
Yeah.
You do the small talk for a while, but then people just blast you with some random stuff.
I hitchhiked from with Sandra from Malmö to Österlen, which is like 10 Swedish miles.
Yeah.
So 100 kilometers or something. Yeah, there were people, but it was not. It was like first it was like 2 people we went along with, and then it was just one guy who was just driving around. And so he was driving around like in Lund, and he picked us up, and we were like, we're trying to hitchhike to Simrishamn, which is, so it's like, I'll drive you there. So he just drove us like 40 minutes or an hour to, so it wasn't pure hitchhiking in that sense.
Yeah, it's just a favor by a random.
Yeah, but it was
kind of cool though.
Yeah, and it's also cool to do things like that, because you don't know you don't know what's gonna happen, and you're just gonna have to like, if we don't find anyone, we'll just have a tent. We just have a tent, so we'll just sleep. It was summer, so you could just sleep in the ditch.
Yeah.
Like sleep. No, but you know what I mean. Sleep under the stars or something. I think it's cool that everything doesn't have to be planned out all the time. But I also have one really dark story about hitchhiking. Okay. It's not a story, but it's there was like one. It was a woman who, as an art project, was going to hitchhike across Europe in like a white bride's dress.
Okay.
To prove like that humans are good.
Okay. It didn't go so well, though.
No, it didn't go very well at all. No, she was like found in a ditch somewhere.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah, and that made it even darker, because she wanted to prove the good of humanity. And
then she proved the opposite.
But I don't.
In a way.
I believe in the good. I believe there's more good in the world, and that the good is a stronger force than the evil. I just think the evil is much more visible.
Yeah.
It's like the same.
It's like a stronger force in isolation. It's just that it doesn't come out as often.
And it's also that we have a bias for the negative, that we remember it more clearly.
Yeah.
But I think the good is strong, because you don't see all the consequences of like a good action. just to like a random person or something like this.
Yeah.
I think it just like resonates out into the world. And so I think actually one has like some responsibility, knowing that it just could, like if you try and be good, it might just like resonate out into the world and make like a really big difference. So it's important to not like be snap at someone, or like to really try and
yeah, because it can ruin someone's day, and then that passes on for sure.
Yeah, and it's easy to think that, oh, what difference does this make? It's just me, the universe is impossibly large, doesn't make a difference. But I think that's a cop-out. I think when you think about it, you don't know. Like, okay, maybe it doesn't make a big difference, but maybe it does. And there's like no evidence either way. And then you should assume that...
yeah, the risk is...
yeah.
What do you say?
That
more
it matters.
If it does make a difference, it's more impactful than if it doesn't. So you should assume that it will be.
Yeah, I think so.
It will make a difference.
Because I know just sometimes, like one random time, I had taken the bus and visited my grandfather, and I was walking home to the bus, and I was feeling a little down, and there was just this like this girl biking past, like not so old, like maybe in 5th grade or something, and I just smiled at her, and she just lit up and smiled at me, and then we just passed by, and that just like it really made my day.
Yeah.
And there was even something that I don't know, I feel like that had a consequence for me, just because I saw that something happened.
Yeah, it bounces
in her.
back. You get some kind of fulfillment also.
Yeah, and then I felt a bit better, and that probably affected me during my day, I think.
Yeah.
So I know, like, you know that it's a chain in some way, and you like that it's not just it just doesn't just stop. Maybe sometimes it just stops, but
have to go for it. I think I'm a little bit skewed onto the dark side of humanity right now. I've been watching far too many criminal psychology shows on YouTube. And also this one about the hitchhiking story reminded me of it. It was a school somewhere in the States. Maybe you know the story. I can't remember what it was called though. Where like these troubled kids used to go.
Columbine.
No.
Anyway,
it was this place for like really troubled kids who couldn't get fixed by psychologists and all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't fit into normal schools. But the deal was that the people would come and actually kidnap them from their houses.
Oh.
At first, to take them there.
Were like the parents in on it?
Yeah, the parents decided that they should go to this place.
But they didn't know.
No, the kids didn't know. So,
fuck.
First of all, most of them were already traumatized. Like the boys thought they were just going to get killed, and the girls thought something gross would happen to them.
Yeah.
And then they get taken to this place, and basically like had all their rights taken away, like all these crazy rules in the school. It was like you're not allowed to smile, you're not allowed to look at someone of the opposite sex, you can't talk to each other. I think it was separated into different like hierarchies of students, and if you were the low ones, you weren't allowed to talk to the high ones unless they talked to you first, and all this kind of crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
And if you did something wrong, then you got punished by like standing in the circle with all the other kids, and they would just blast you with insults for like hours on end.
Oh my god.
And if you did something really wrong, you were like put into a boxing match. Against like the champion of the school.
It sounds insane.
It sounds like really fucked, but it actually happened.
Wow, it sounds like a TV show almost.
Yeah. And I think one kid actually died from this. Like they just fought until he was busted and went to the hospital and died later. And then what was it? Like some kids they did some wrong stuff and they were ordered to go and live in the dumpster out the back, like the big metal container where the rubbish goes. And then other kids were designated to guard them. And if the kids in the dumpster escaped, the kids guarding them would be put into the dumpster. So it's like this whole hierarchical thing where you're just forced to do these things because there's someone always above you who's going to fuck you over if you don't fuck over the other kids.
Yeah.
But then the really depressing part, and what reminded me of the story with the hitchhiking, was like 3 people escaped from the place over the years. I think one of them made it back to their family and like told some stories.
Yeah.
But another one went to their, I think, girlfriend's parents' house, knocked on the door, and the girlfriend's parents just came out with a shotgun and killed them.
Oh, wow.
Like, so you escape from this place, finally, and then you just run into that.
Yeah.
Super unlucky. And then another girl, like, escaped out onto the main road and tried to hitchhike. Got picked up by a truck driver, was assaulted, and then killed in the forest.
Yeah.
It's like so fucking crazy. And then those kinds of stories, though, it makes you think, like, there must be quite a few bad people in the world. If that's how unlucky you can get.
Yeah.
To be shoved into the situation, finally get out, and then you think your chances of being rescued are actually just blown apart by some fucking idiot. And the guy that kidnapped the girl, or like hitchhiked a girl, he had done that for years, apparently, like with a lot of other people. And the only reason they figured him out was because there was like one hair from her in his truck or something. Crazy shit, man. Like, really mental stuff. I'll have to remember the clip and send it to you. It was pretty interesting.
It's like the one verse in the Bible that says something like, to those with nothing, everything will be taken. And to those with everything, everything will be given. There is something very like dark with, like once things start to go well, usually it becomes like a positive spiral. And the other way around, it can become a negative spiral.
Yeah, it's really
and
interesting.
Maybe it's like, but it's not exactly what you are talking about.
No, but it kind of is in a way. Like, I don't know what went wrong first for them in their lives. Maybe they had like abusive parents or something, so they couldn't focus in school. And then they get sent to this camp, which is even worse. And then like they need to escape and be on their own in the middle of the night on the dark road. It's like things keep compounding and making their lives worse.
Yeah, I think there's something to that compounding that really can just destroy. This thing with escaping reminds me of a story that really affected me. That's in the Gulag archipelago. I guess we're going down
Dark podcast.
I guess we're going down this route now.
A light topic at some point, maybe.
Yeah,
but let's go for it.
Yeah, I have some other, but so there's this one section in like the 4th book, which is about people who are put into like camps, Gulag camps, and they would escape. And this one story describes one character, and I don't remember his name, but he's described as this sort of person that just couldn't be locked in. Like he would rather die trying to escape than be locked in. So it is this amazing story of him planning to escape a camp, which is like really difficult because they're in the middle of the steppe.
Yeah.
Steppe. The steppe landscape. Steppe. It's middle of the steppe. So it's just like, imagine you have like this camp with guards with guns. It's barbed wire around. They count you every evening, and then it's like several miles upon miles of steppe around you, with and it's cold.
Yeah.
And so it's just this epic story of him and another guy escaping, and they plan it for a long time, and they escape.
Do they have to plan to like steal food and supplies and stuff, or is it not like
They
that far?
kind he got a package, I think. There was like a godsend, like the day before.
Yeah.
He just randomly got a package from some relatives, so they had some more food. I think maybe they had stashed some food the day before, and and then they managed to escape, and they were supposed to steal a vehicle, but it went wrong, so they couldn't do that. So they just had to run out onto the step.
Jeez.
And just like lie down on the ground. No, hold on. No, because they didn't notice that they had escaped. That's the thing. They thought that they had noticed because there was something.
Yeah. Saw some lights or something.
It's all of these, like the nick of how destiny works.
Yeah.
Because for some reason in the camp they shut up like signals. And it was because the light went out or something. But they thought they shut up signals because they had already noticed. So therefore they couldn't take the car, so they had to run out just to the step for some reason. But so they managed to get really far before they started looking, and they knew that like every meter they put between themselves and the camp would be like 4 square meters for them to search.
Yeah, right.
Because it goes so they just like kept walking, and then they almost starved to death during this huge escape. Like he describes it how they were so tired that after lying down, when he had to get up in the morning after sleeping in some indentation in the ground, he was lying on his stomach and he couldn't get up. So he had to roll around onto his... No, he was lying on his back and he couldn't get up. So he had to roll onto his stomach and then take up his knees and then his hands. And with all 4 limbs, he could like push himself up.
Shit, so crazy.
But then it's the same thing. Then they get to like... because they're getting more and more hungry. And they see one of these houses made of hides. And I think this is in Kazakhstan. So they go to knock on, and these people in there, they try to kill them because they don't want to be found with
helping someone.
Yeah, because the whole system in the Soviet was like telling on each other.
Yeah.
So they try to kill them, but then they have a gun, the escapees, I think, and they manage to like subdue them somehow. And then they steal food instead. Yeah. And they continue, and then there's some search party, but they manage to hide. And then at some point they like manage to kill a horse, and they're like drinking its blood. And I think this was and then he draws like a parallel. I think this was the same time when they had like some... I don't know if it was like a Nobel dinner or something in Sweden. You just draw the parallel to the West, like at the same time, because in the West there was a lot of apologists for the. So he drew this parallel where like, they were
just overindulging something.
Overindulging with champagne and stuff, and here were people escaping from the camps, drinking horse blood out on the. And it just and they managed to escape for a long time, and then they get to a river, which is like a big, and they steal a fisher's boat, and they go down this river, and they meet more people, and like everyone betrays them. They find out later that everyone betrays them during the way.
Shit.
And then you come to. One part where so this whole section I think was described by Solzhenitsyn, which is the author of the Gulag Archipelago, and then there's the next section which is described by the guy himself who escaped, and this is called the White Kitten, and I think this is one of my favorite passages because they continue to escape during this river, and then they live for some time on an island in this river, and it's like a paradise compared to everything. They can fish and get some food, and they're just living on this island. Like
There's no one else there.
no, and everything else. It's just a really, really small island in the middle of a river. And it's just this, what would you call it? Secluded small paradise for them. And at the time people are looking for them. And they sort of know that they can't stay there forever. But
Yeah,
for
it
them,
would also be really obvious if someone sees a boat there or something.
yeah, and because they had to hide it by the shore and stuff. And they know that this won't last forever. But for now, they're like staying there and just enjoying it. But then eventually they have to escape from there as well, because someone comes up on the island to cut down wood, and they see them and they leave, and later they find out that those people also betrayed them. And then it comes to one point where they pretend to be police officers, and they go up next to another boat where a man is moving his whole family. They're moving, and so they have a choice to like kill this man and take his boat, and this would like quite surely be like a big that might be the way to escape for them.
Just get away completely.
Because they can't continue with their little boat for some reason, and they have like supplies and stuff on this boat. And then there's this small white kitten that like walks up on his foot or something, and he just decides not to kill this man because his family and child are there as well. And he wouldn't kill those, but he would like leave them on the...
Yeah, but it would still be like catastrophic for the family. Probably.
Yeah, it's
especially
like,
if they're trying to escape something.
Yeah, they were just moving, I think, but it was like their whole life. But so despite all of this, he decides not to do it. And then some more stuff happens, but he ends up getting caught after like more than a month on the run. Like surviving the desert, almost dying of starvation several times, almost being betrayed several times, living on this island, getting to this point where he could get the boat, deciding not to, and then they get caught, and then on the way, and then they get driven all the way back to the camp, and he's like tied up with his hands behind his back, lying on the floor of a van.
Yeah.
And the road is like really uneven, so his head is just like banging all the way back. And then when he gets to the camp, he wants to find some way to like go out in a blaze. But then he gets like a rare type of cancer, and he gets ill really quickly. So he's not able to.
What the fuck?
He's not able to.
That's so crazy.
He gets weak very quickly, and it's like in his last days that he writes this story, The White Kitten, and gives it to Solzhenitsyn in some way. So I think it's quite a remarkable story, very dark.
Yeah.
Very dark, but there's also this beauty in it, the same as the Grave of the Fireflies. Like just staying on this island. It's like almost nothing, but it's paradise for them, and they know it won't last forever. But they're like, to me, there's something very beautiful about that.
Yeah, there's something fascinating, like almost, like it draws you into wanting to experience it in some way. I don't know if it's more of a survival thing. Like I really like this idea of just going somewhere completely or almost barren.
Yeah.
And like trying to live for a while.
Yeah.
That would be cool. But yeah, that's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Like also crazy that they go to such lengths to try and get the prisoners back. A whole month of like.
Yeah, I guess I guess it's like very important because there's quite few guards and lots of prisoners, and I think it's a huge mental thing, seeing someone come back completely.
Yeah.
Like he was gone for this long and still give up.
Yeah, that gives a message for sure.
I think it's like a huge mental blow, but it's true. It is. Yeah, but
Maybe they don't have anything better to do either. Like the soldiers or whoever they were that were guarding those places. Like
yeah. 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 There's lots of just insane stories from that book about like human nature, how humans can be. So there is lots of darkness. But I think one of his conclusions, which is like a famous quote, is like the dividing line between good and evil cuts through the middle of every human heart. And I think that's true. That we all have like really a big darkness within us, but also the really good, and like all persons, all individuals are capable of both sides.
Do you think it would have been evil if he'd killed the man and taken the boat? Or is that just desperation and survival at some point?
I mean, I think you could make the argument both ways, but I feel like it would have made him maybe as bad as the ones who were chasing him. And just the fact that he didn't do it is somehow extremely powerful, I think.
I mean, maybe that's his going out in the blaze that he always wanted. Like,
yeah.
Actually,
yeah, it's like one of the most powerful things I can. It's not powerful in a way that anyone, like no one will know it, or some people read the book and stuff, but it's powerful in a way that maybe very few people will know about it, but nonetheless, it's extremely powerful somehow. But still, I think...
Well, what happened to there was two dudes that escaped, eh?
Which two dudes?
Was it two? Or
Yeah, it was
one
two.
guy? Yeah.
Both of them were taken
Captured
back
at the same time.
Yeah. Dark stuff. But you wouldn't write a big book about all the good stuff.
No,
like it's
probably not.
This book is just
about people donating to charities and whatever else.
Yeah.
That's interesting, actually. It's hard to like come up with so many examples of what a good act is. You can very quickly blast out all the bad acts.
Yeah. I think smiling at people.
Smiling at random people on the bus.
Yeah, I try to do it. It's like a small act. And like also just buying some little gift for people. Like maybe like I think gifts, but they're mostly symbolic. Just some small, like, because it's mostly the symbolic thing that you, or at least that I appreciate.
Yeah.
Just show that, or maybe just calling someone and stuff like this.
Showing interest and
Yeah.
some kind of care or something.
Yeah.
I like buying people food. I like have this favor bank idea that I just buy people stuff and say that it's on the favor bank, but who knows if I'll ever get it back.
Yeah, but I think it's like karma. It will come back in some way. Like it goes back to the resonate. It just resonates out, and it will come back. And that's not some like fluffy thing like, oh, it'll come back.
Yeah.
I think it's something very real, because if you do bad things, you get a bad reputation. And things stop coming your way. Yeah. If you do good things,
absolutely true.
During a long time, you start getting a good reputation. People want to be around people with good reputation.
Yeah.
And it's also like good things come to people who do good things. Like the Bible thing, those with it. Like it's it all ties together, Scott. It makes sense.
It all makes sense. And I think this isn't like a good way to think about doing good things or a reason to do it, but if you always try your best to be good like that, it gives you more wriggle room when you make a mistake, I think. I think if
Yes, because people then know that it's an honest mistake.
It's not like people know your actual nature, and of course the psychopath maybe does the good things like on purpose to trick people or whatever, but I think in general.
And I think all acts have some egotistical part.
Yeah, of course.
And you can never get away from that, but you shouldn't think too much about it, I think.
No.
You should just be good.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Things mostly for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I favor bank people because it gives me some kind of fulfillment. Like, it's not like I'm just doing it because someone is hungry on a particular day or needs a snack or something. It's like, it's nice for me to give someone something.
Yeah, and you also feel better just doing it for the sake of doing it. And then maybe you also get a favor back.
Yeah.
So it's just good in so many ways. So you definitely have an incentive. Like you definitely have like an egotistical incentive in that way to be good. But I mean, I feel like the word loses its meaning, or it's like egotistic. It stops. It sounds so harsh, but in that sense, it means almost nothing of its original meaning.
No.
Because you're being a good person.
Yeah, people weight that word a little bit too.
Yeah.
Negatively, I think.
And I read one book that was arguing for, I think it was called like they argued for egotism. And they completely flipped it upside down like it was a good thing. And I think it is, like in the way we're talking about it, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
Knowing that like if you do what's best for you, and you're a smart person, because when one says if you do what's best for you, you think like, oh, just roughing together everything for myself, but that's not best for you, and you know that's not best for you because that's like you will get a bad reputation.
Yeah.
What's best for you? What's best for you is like sharing to other people so you get a good reputation, but still you do it for. So it kind of flips it all on its head. Because when people say like one should have no ego, I don't think like you can't survive without an ego.
No, then you just.
Then you just wouldn't. That there's no evolutionary sentiment for no ego. I don't think it's good. You'll just die, but you should. Yeah, but you will. Like if you just stop caring about yourself.
Yeah.
Completely. Why should you eat? You should give away all your food.
Yeah, true.
Like you should. You can't be. And if you die, then there's not someone in your place who can make the world a little bit better, maybe. So then you have been egotistical because you wasn't egotistical, because now you're dead. But I
give away all your organs to someone and like.
Yeah,
call it a day.
Yeah, call it a day. I heard someone. It's interesting because someone said, I think this was in academia. So say you have. Let's see if I can tell this coherently. If you have an idea or something, you have a responsibility to not be too like humble, because it needs like you need to be able to get it out there.
Yeah, and convince people that it's worth.
Yeah, and
something.
Yeah, and so that other people can learn from you. But because if someone else takes it over, that person might not be like if they're willing to just take your idea, then they're probably not as moral a person. If I guess it depends on the circumstance. But if you just are being super humble, then evolutionarily, the one that's willing to just push you down, that person will flourish evolutionarily because it will create this. So in some sense, I guess it's like you shouldn't be a pushover. You should be a bit humble and you shouldn't be super egotistical. But you also need to not be a pushover, so that your type of person can continue to be around. Like, I don't know, I'm not explaining it very well at all.
Yeah, but I think I get it. I think it's a super interesting concept too.
Because I think the person who explained it was from like evolutionary perspective. And people...
Is it almost like, if you have an idea, or if someone steals something from you, whether it's physical or intellectual or whatever, if they're willing to steal, then they're going to misuse that thing, kind of.
Probably. And also, you will be like the right type of person to find that thing will not be awarded for it. And I think that will have consequences also, because then that will just continue to happen.
Yeah, it reinforces the idea that it's
and then maybe
maybe
good people who are good at finding ideas but humble will just stop. They will go to some other...
well, they'll stop sharing. Maybe they'll still find the ideas, but they'll be like, just keep it to themselves.
So you have some sort of responsibility to not just disappear.
Yeah.
To stand up for yourself, and that speaks to ego in some way. That like, if I do this, then I want to be awarded in some way. I mean, that's ego, but there's also something to that, I think.
Fascinating one.
Yeah. But I also look up to people who don't need any... how do you say?
Like validation?
Any validation at all.
Do you think that exists? Or is it just a front?
Like, do you know this barefoot Charles Albert? The barefoot climber?
Yeah.
So I talked to...
I don't know so well, but I've seen some videos.
Yeah. I talked to French climber last podcast who climbs a lot with him. And maybe I'm making this image of Charles, but I think he seems to just be doing it for this, like climbing for the sake of climbing, not without a need to. I mean, he doesn't share anything. He lives in a cave in the woods, and like does his thing. Maybe you could say that is egotistical. But you can always twist that. But like, I think that's...
But that's for sure not looking for validation.
No, and that's like something very, very rare, I think.
But do you think you're kind of the same? Because we talked about that just recently, that you usually don't post your sins.
Yeah.
And you just started now to...
But I guess it's this idea we just talked about, because I haven't posted very much at all, because I don't get any enjoyment from it. It's just mostly a hassle. But then people, if there are strong climbers who don't post anything, then they won't get any sponsors. And if you don't get any sponsors, maybe it's harder to continue climbing. Maybe you can't afford it. Maybe you can't climb at the same level. And you will disappear and make room for people who are willing to just put themselves out there. So right now I've just started posting purely for the sake of getting a sponsor. But I take no enjoyment in it. It's just...
it doesn't matter how many likes you get or...
No...
comments saying how...
No, but I want to grow my following. But I don't... Like, I only want to do it to get sponsors.
Yeah.
No, there are some other reasons as well. There is something to having an audience. Because, like, for example, if you, like before, if you wanted to publish a book, you had to go through a book company, or a publishing company, I mean.
True.
And they were sort of gatekeepers. They could say, no, this book is not good enough.
Yeah.
They could just be some person there. No, this is not good enough.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, and they decide what's... But if you have an audience that have gotten to know you, perhaps through a podcast or through just following you, writing stuff on Instagram or whatever platform, then they sort of know you, and you can cut out the middleman and just go directly to... So I think it has potential for more degrees of freedom.
Yeah, gives you some leverage.
Yeah, and I guess maybe you need like a huge audience and stuff like this, but I don't think it's bad to put yourself in a position like that where there is like potential to because I don't like being dependent on, like, if you're really dependent on one thing, on maybe one job or something, I think it makes you a little vulnerable in one way.
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
So I think it's good to be also like a bit wider in that sense to, I guess, diversify or something.
Yeah, it has to be good.
Yeah. So that's also one of the reasons. But I have mixed feelings about Instagram because I really think it's extremely bad for humans.
Yeah, me too.
I just feel like it just breaks down. For sure, it breaks down the ability to focus.
Yeah, I found myself recently, for the first time actually, like just scrolling random shit on Instagram.
Yeah.
Normally I have a few people that I follow and I actually want to see stuff from, like mostly climbing or a few random memes or something. But the last week or two I've been just, now the algorithms are so good, and it's like it shows me lots of weird animal memes and ducks and stuff that I like looking at, and then I can just scroll and it shows me that stuff for half an hour, or as long as I need it to. And that feels really dangerous.
And it just, it's quite scary how it sucks you in and how just time passes. And you're really doing, like, I guess it can become a philosophical argument, like, oh, but you're laughing and you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So in one sense, like, maybe if you like that existence of just like passively sitting and feeling good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a completely, like, that's maybe that's better than sitting passively and feeling bad.
Yeah.
But there's also something to like creating something or being able to, because I think it's also with like attention time or that your ability to focus is really like broken down because everything is so fast. With like TikTok as well and stuff like this, where it's just
that's even worse.
It's literally 5 seconds, and then it immediately starts playing the next thing. And like when you hear, it's like freaky when you hear people sometimes on the bus or something, how just quickly they, it's always music to it or some sound, and just how quickly they switch. But it's like 2 seconds.
Yeah, if that.
It's like that. Like how it must be so hard to concentrate after.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people who's, they try and take their kids to a movie or something, and they just can't sit there for, like, the cinema is kind of dying, because that's, even though it's like a super exciting movie or something, maybe it's still like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And then imagine books or something.
Yeah, a book. Nobody's going to read a book in 10 years.
Yeah,
if you're used to like 5-second intervals of content, and then you try and watch something for over an hour, like that's.
Yeah, and then the social media companies, they're only trying to make it more addictive. You notice the new features.
Yeah.
That like, before when you pulled down your home page, what do you call it? Scrolling down your homepage on Instagram.
Yeah, like the feed.
Like it used to just go to older stuff, and you got bored. Like, oh, I've seen this before. But now it switches to like just random reels.
Yeah.
And so you can just like go into an infinite spin.
Yeah.
Like they're really not your friend in any way.
No.
Like they don't want to. And that, yeah. So I try and be careful with this. I don't have the app on my phone. I try to just upload stuff on my computer, but sometimes I also just get stuck.
Yeah.
And then just a bunch of time passes by, and
But once in a while, it's probably fine. Like any other binge.
yeah. Sometimes
like,
it's
get drunk one weekend. Some people want to just eat candy one night or something. And then, if you watch Instagram videos for 2 hours one day, it's probably not the end of the world.
No. Actually, that's very true. The problem is when it becomes like a habit.
Yeah.
You know, when you just go to
every
the app
morning,
and you
night,
click it, and when it becomes a habit, I think that's when it becomes dangerous. I think it's actually dangerous. I think we're gonna look back on this time. You know, you looked back when you let like kids smoke when they were like really small, and there's also stuff where like, I think this was, I don't know, this was ways further back, but when they first found radioactive materials, I don't know, maybe we talked about it before, but they were, it was like capitalism going crazy in the US and human arrogance, and they were like, oh, this luminescent material, it's super cool, let's paint like a child's crib with it, let's use it for toothpaste.
Without really testing to see what happens. Because you can't test those things over like 10 years.
No, and this is the same thing. It's like a huge experiment where we're just like exposing people to some sort of algorithm that no one really understands, because it's like a black box thing where it just produces what will make you stay longer. And maybe that can send people down like some dark paths, and like I think we're gonna look back at like social media in this form as like the things of our time that was really, really bad. Like as bad as young kids smoking, as bad as painting uranium on like a...
it's harder to measure when it's a psychological effect versus like, oh no, 100,000 people have died from lead poisoning or whatever it is. Like,
and it's not visual in the same way as like dying of cancer from lung cancer from smoking.
Cigarettes.
Like it's the same as we talked about. It's like how you can't see the effects. You can only see the effects maybe on a big scale after several years. And then the society has like morphed into something completely different, where people don't talk to each other and everyone's just like staring into their phones, and
everyone's upset because they don't know how to interact.
I have one thing I thought about, completely different.
Maybe it's good to distract us about to go off on another tangent about something a bit dark.
So Kung Fu Panda. So I listened to one podcast about a Kung Fu Panda. Have you seen it?
Maybe the first one?
Yeah, I'm like talking about the first one. There's like Po, the panda, and then there's all these warriors in the monastery maybe, and there's one like small rat-like guy who's the master, and then there's the old master, which is the turtle, or how do you say? No, there's two words for
tortoise.
Which one is the one on land? Turtle.
Tortoise?
No, I think turtle.
It's a turtle, isn't it?
No, I don't know.
The Galapagos Island ones. That Galapagos tortoise, right?
Tortoise.
And they're sitting on the island. So
okay. And turtle then is with the flabbing, swimming on. Okay, so tortoise.
I think so. I'm not 100%, but
no, you're probably right. And so I listened to a podcast about this, and he was asking like, because the person being interviewed So it was one guy interviewing another guy, and he asked him, how am I going to explain this in a good way? So who? It's going to sound so bad. Who is the rat in your life? Like the one, the master that's in most of the movie. Who is that person in your life? He asked this guy. And this guy said, that's interesting because I didn't see the rat, which isn't the rat, as the master or the teacher.
Yeah.
I saw the tortoise as the master. And he only appears for a very short... He only has one interaction with Poe, the panda. And gives him some sort of knowledge. And then he dies or disappears and later dies or something. But this was somehow like the most important lesson in some way. And I started thinking about this, like, do I have some character in my life that just briefly was there and gave me some advice that maybe even at the time I didn't realize was good advice, but that really was very good, like
just like one sentence almost.
Yeah.
Or one interaction.
Yeah, and then disappeared. And I realized I had that, I think. So it was my grandfather's brother who lives in the US, and he came to visit, and I think this was over 10 years ago now. Or maybe a little less, 8 years ago. And he was only there briefly, but the only thing I remember from that visit was that he told me, never be afraid to say what you think. And for me, I think that has become like one... I don't think I'm very good at it.
Yeah.
But
it's something that you keep on your mind.
Yeah. And I kind of realize, with time, I've realized that was like a really important thing. That it's like that really has become like a ground stone, a stepping stone in the way I look at the world, I think. It was just this brief... so cool. I think maybe this was a bit random, but do you have someone like that? Just like a brief...
I've been trying to think about it since you said started the story, but...
It's a very specific thing.
I can think of like a lot of people who are more of the rat, like who I've really looked up to for a year or more, and they've influenced me
should call it something different than the rat, because it sounds so bad.
That kind of thing is also really hard to think of, I think, in it.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing...
In the spare of the moment. Like, it'll be something in a week or whatever, I'll just think of it and be like, this...
Because it was the same for me. I listened to this podcast, and then like way later I was like, yeah, I guess it's not the best question to just put on the spot. But it's still...
It would be cool if it just came to me, like...
Yeah. It's quite an interesting concept, I think.
Yeah.
How just something so brief can turn out to be quite important. Or maybe the most important, even.
Yeah. I think for me also, it's like I haven't ever been a person that makes perhaps a strong enough relation with someone that they would tell me something like that in such a short amount of time. I always like more slowly build the relations with people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because it needs to be a very special thing for... Because I think I wasn't close at all with my grandfather's brother. But still, obviously, we had a connection because, like, cousins or whatever you call it.
Some kind of family.
It needs to be like a very special circumstance
Yeah.
for it to happen, maybe.
I mean, it's possible, like, my grandfather may have said something to me. Because he died when I was 4, or at least one of my grandfathers.
Mm.
And, I don't remember him so much.
No.
So I'd say if he said something, then it would be one of those, like, brief moments of influence, but
Yeah.
I think I was just too young.
Yeah, I don't remember so much from... It's also so hard to know what is actual memory and what is just constructed from like pictures and stories.
Yeah.
And memory is really like...
Well, we were talking about that the other day as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Something along those lines of, like, you can convince yourself that something actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost a little freaky. You don't know if you can trust yourself.
Mm. Like, I have a really vivid memory of almost falling off, like, the stairwell or something in my house.
Mm.
And my dad, I think, caught me. It's maybe not so vivid anymore, but I think I asked my dad once if that actually happened, and he said no. So it was either a dream, which just stayed for like 20 years,
Yeah.
or some weird constructed memory of, like...
Or maybe your dad just didn't remember correctly.
Could also be it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this one memory of like my parents were building like a shed. So the house, the ground of the shed was there with like planks.
Yeah.
And I was like really like three or something, or maybe just 2. I was lying there on this. It was like a wide expanse for me. Just but there's also one picture of me where I'm lying on it. And so I don't know if this is the real memory of me lying there, or if I've just seen like the picture and like put myself into it somehow. But yeah.
Here's an interesting one then. Like, I have this memory of when I got stuck in the mud. Like, we used to live on a peninsula, like surrounded by mud flats. So I went down there as a kid and like walked around and got stuck pretty much up to my knees and just, couldn't pull myself out. And then I think I called out for help or something like that. But every time that I think of that memory and like tell the story to someone, I think of kind of how it could be more epic in a way, or like dramatic.
Yeah.
And now I've told the story so many times and had these like ideas of, what if there was like last time I told it was just last week to Simon, the chef here.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, what if a shark came? And I was like, yeah, actually a shark could come because there was a butcher shop up the creek.
What, a shock?
Shark.
Shark,
Yeah, shark.
Oh, you were in the water.
No. Okay, so like I'm saying, every time I think of this, I'm like, oh, I could have been stuck there until the tide came in, and like, because in New Zealand also the tides actually do come really fucking fast sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I could have been stuck and drowned or something, like that would be crazy.
Yeah.
And then I told him that, like, yeah, maybe the tide could have come in.
Yeah.
Just to be dramatic about it.
Adding bits and
bit of
pieces.
a joke. And he was like, oh yeah, then a shark could come. I was like, yeah, but a shark could. Because this butcher shop a little bit up the peninsula would throw the guts from the pigs and shit into the ocean.
Yeah.
And then sharks actually would come up in this little channel thing.
Yeah, but that is true. You do add small things.
Yeah, and now when I think back, I can't actually remember how dramatic it was for me. I remember I was scared because I couldn't move my feet and I was yelling out for someone to come and help.
Yeah.
But was I actually scared that the water would come in and I would drown, or was I just, like bored and wanted to get out of the mud and go and play with Legos or something? I don't know. So kind of repeating this memory over and over again and editing it every time I think about it in my own head, whether it's just for a laugh or whatever, has kind of put some filter over it which separated it from reality in some way.
Yeah, and probably changes it a little bit over time.
And now I can't remember what actually happened. Like, I think I yelled out and my neighbors came and like pulled me out of the thing. But I don't remember how it went down exactly. Like if my gumboots were left there and we got them later, or if, these little facts about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very interesting, actually. I'm trying to think of something. Yeah, you really start wondering or being a little suspicious of your own memories when you realize that maybe I've constructed this. It would be interesting to talk to someone about such memories and see if they what their version of it is, because then maybe you discover oh, I remember this completely differently.
Well, these days it's going to be possible to, at some point there'll be a recording of a conversation, like now.
Yeah.
And then in 10 years, maybe we have another conversation about that memory and it comes up. And we can be like,
Yeah.
I wonder what I said happened. Maybe there was a fucking killer whale or something next time that came and actually bit my leg off.
Yeah.
So.
But that's all. This makes me think of social media again. Like kids, writing stuff, stupid stuff because you're a teenager on social media.
Yeah.
And there's a permanent
and you get
record.
Cancelled and fucked over for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and there are people just. I think it's more so in the U.S. I haven't heard about it in Sweden, but just people that get kicked out of Harvard or out of schools because of something they wrote several years ago. And I guess I could understand it if it's something super Nazi
Yeah.
But even if you're 15, you're so dumb.
Yeah, even if you
you're so dumb.
supported Hitler or something. It's
maybe
people can change enough to realize that that's really fucking stupid.
Yeah, and it's
not a way to be.
You need to make mistakes as a kid.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're not allowed to make mistakes. And then instead I think people become very careful. And scared maybe of saying anything. And I think that also has lots of consequences in different ways. Then you don't explore properly. And if you don't explore, then you don't find as much. You just stay in some narrow lane, not questioning anything, you don't want to stand out, you don't want to do any, that's not good at a university. You want to be exploring and asking really dumb, naive questions, and it's not. Yeah, imagine just having a permanent record like that. Yikes.
Yeah, that would be rough.
I guess I have, but I haven't been so active on. I wasn't so active on social media when I was younger. I think I got maybe Facebook when I was 15 or 16 or something. But I didn't post at all on Facebook.
I was much more of a lurker as well. I didn't put so much.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of photos of me flipping off the camera or something, but nothing. No charged opinions or anything like that. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I should check.
But imagine growing up and being able to look at your parents' Facebook or something from when they were 9.
Yeah.
Or
be a few.
Maybe they'll have to go through and clean it or something.
Yeah.
Do you want that?
I mean, back then it was common to just throw around N-bombs and F-bombs and all the derogatory stuff, and nobody really cared.
Yeah.
And now, if someone writes that kind of shit, then
it's
that's the end of them.
It's fucking decapitation. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few of these cancellations of people.
Yeah.
This guy Devo, who used to do some. I mean, it was kind of. I guess it's offensive content. And did some rap songs about how he was shagging girls in the school and stuff like this. Then he became a school teacher. And they eventually found his old content and fired him and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he can do now. And it's man, it's 12 years, 15 years ago or something.
Yeah,
it's really rough.
I mean, I guess there is some argument for if you do really bad things, like you can't just put up anything and expect. But also, like, people change, and it's like somehow we've forgotten, or some part of culture has just forgotten that people change and completely stopped being forgiving.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
everything is permanent.
On that kind of stuff as well.
And maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's a part of social media as well. If you can look back and see it like if it was a memory, oh, he did this, but it was so long ago. I just barely remember it was a memory. Yeah, it was stupid, but it was like a decade ago. But now you can actually go back and look at this video and just see it vividly.
Yeah.
And maybe it makes it then feel like more fresh, more recent. Like, yeah. But yeah, we need. It's also necessary to be forgiving. But it's it's a balance. I don't know. I think culture is all crazy right now.
Yeah, it's difficult to have opinions also now. Like, I've watched a few videos, I can't give exact examples, but where it's like people are just hunting hypocrisy now.
Yeah.
Like, they want to find a video of a streamer or something and where they've said an opinion, and then they go back 15 years and be like, oh, but you said the opposite of this back then.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, maybe his opinion changed?
Maybe I've evolved as a person.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when it's something, like the new opinion is more positive than the old one or something, then like...
Yeah.
Why pick a fight on that? It just seems so petty.
Yeah, and like sometimes it gets ridiculous. I saw this one thing where there was like an overweight black gay guy, I think, and it was like obviously gay. And they asked and he was like in on this together with another guy, and they asked people to describe him, like, oh yeah, this guy was here, could you describe him for us? And they were like, yeah, his name was Derek, he had brown eyes, I think, he seemed like he had a nice personality, like, but and I guess the thing was, oh yeah, we need they were gonna draw like a sketch of him or something. And they just couldn't identify him, and they just ended up like basically drawing a stick figure. Yeah. Well, you could say, like, you can't say obvious things because people get offended. Like, I don't know. In that case, it just became completely absurd.
Reminds me also a little bit. I'm not sure if we talked about this. When these guys were coming in here and stealing a lot of stuff. Oh yeah. Actually, that happened again recently. That a dude came in and took someone's jacket and their phone. Yeah. And I saw them walking past the office when I was sitting there outside, and I was like, "Huh, these guys look really suspicious." Like, yeah, I feel like they're up to something. You just get this intuition. Yeah. But then the logical side took over, and I was like, "No, I shouldn't." Like,
yeah, because what if you walk up to someone and they're like, yeah, that's so difficult.
Because they were like immigrant kids, you know, like looking a bit rough with their big fur jackets and shit, and like face mask on because it was COVID times. Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, for sure they're gonna try and steal some shit. And
then you're like, but is that am I a bad person? Is that a stereotype? Yeah. But then you end up being right, and it's like,
and then I could have stopped someone's laptop getting stolen. It's like,
yeah. I don't know. It's actually difficult because you don't want to be like suspicious of someone because of the way they look. But at the same time, I mean, we're not...
That's all you have to go on.
Yeah, well. You're not dumb. Like, there are patterns you see. Yeah. And then sometimes it's someone completely different who does something really bad. And someone who may... Like, there are also like... Someone who looks like suspicious ends up being a great person. Like, it's there's all parts of it, but yeah, it's difficult. That's really difficult. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And like prejudice in a way is how we get through life.
Yeah, and
like
need...
we have to make split-second decisions about stuff based on patterns, like you say, and then if you don't know anything else about someone, that's just what you go on.
Yeah, because that's the way we see the world. Like when you're small, you have like dog and cat, and maybe if you see a wolf, they say dog. Because it goes into... It's like... It goes back to like our framework of understanding the world, I think. And I think it gets more and more like detailed the older and the wiser we get.
Yeah.
But it's still it's the... Like if you couldn't put anything in a box, like, oh, is this a chair or is it an illusion of a chair, or is it like, I don't know. I can't call this a chair because it might be something else.
Yeah, it might
like
be
then
a stool.
then you can't communicate with each other, and you need some stereotypes.
Yeah.
Just to be able to function in the world, I think. But then, of course, they also have unfortunate sides to them, where someone feels some certain way. But then you can also see, like, there's also the possibility then for... If we get super sensitive about stereotypes, then you give, like, narcissistic people a possibility to just really take advantage of that. Like, oh, did you mean it that way? Like, you can...
Yeah.
Anything...
and get gaslit all day long.
Yeah, and then anything you say can be... anything can be seen in a really bad way. And I think that goes back to... like believing in... I try to believe in the good in people, and try to see things like, oh, they probably meant it in this way, in the more positive way. And usually that makes things better. Because I found myself in positions like this where maybe I think someone is mad at me or something, or maybe they didn't like me. And I kind of think of it as a truth, and then I'm like, but wait a minute. Like, I don't know if that's just something I created in my mind. I need to, like, investigate sort of if it's true. So I should go up to this person and just say hi. And if they then are really, like, standoffish, okay, maybe I was right.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, you get surprised, I think.
Yeah, maybe someone's just having a weird mood and they're off in their own thoughts.
Because I know myself a lot of the time. Like, I'm not always super talkative to people, but a lot of the time I think it's because maybe I'm a little shy or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not super extroverted, I think, in that way. And I think, I could probably come off as maybe like cold or something because I'm...
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same.
Yeah.
Maybe for slightly different reasons, but I think maybe the perception other people have is the same. Like, I don't immediately talk to people, and more introverted, usually pretty tired.
Yeah.
Like, just not in the mood for it, but
yeah,
it doesn't mean that I think badly of them or that I wouldn't want to have some kind of communication at some other point, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to think positively about people. To try and think of them in the most... see them in the best light. I think that's a good rule of thumb, to at least try and do it that way.
Yeah.
But that's also, if you're having a bad day, it's easier said than done, for sure. Yeah.
And eventually someone will proof that they're not worth seeing the light either as well. Like,
Yeah.
there's going to be those people.
But I also read something, maybe it was a tweet or something, where it was this Lex Friedman guy we talked about. He wrote, if you look for bad things in people, you will eventually be proven right.
Yeah.
And if you look for good things, you will also eventually be proven right. And the latter makes everything better, and the former makes everything worse, or something like that. And there is truth to that, because everyone is flawed and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I definitely try not to completely dislike that many people. Like, of course, sometimes you just can't deal with people's flaws because they just go against some of your beliefs or ideas. But yeah, I try and stay at least neutral with most people.
Yeah. And I think it's good to be able to, even if you don't agree with someone, to be able to like disconnect a little and just listen to them. And maybe they're saying mad shit, but you can just like identify that, oh, they're saying mad shit, they don't know what they're talking about. And I think that's good
you don't have to like attack them or break them down.
You don't immediately need to start screaming or something. I think it's important to be able to say to someone like, I think that's offensive, or I think I don't agree at all with that. Or maybe, because this also goes back to, like, a lot of the time someone says like something, and then you put in, and then someone puts in, oh, you meant this, and then you get mad at them for saying this whole thing whilst they actually just said this.
Yeah.
So maybe like start to inquire a little and like, oh, actually you only meant this, because I think it's like this thing. Don't ascribe malice to stupidity or malice to. I guess it's the same thing. That don't immediately go to, this is a bad person. And yeah,
that's probably wise.
I have one more random thing. So, I read a book, and it was like one part of it. The whole book was really good. It's called Till sanningens lov.
Okay.
By Torgny Lindgren. It's like he's a well-known. He's deceased now. He passed away. But he was a very well-known Swedish author from like the north of Sweden. And I don't know how to translate the title.
What was it again?
Till sanningens lov. To the truths. I don't know how to.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because lov can have many different meanings. It can mean like. It can mean like that the truth allows it. But I don't know how. But yeah, that's the title.
Yeah.
But the thing I took from this book, I took many things, but one thing that's really stuck with me, and I haven't really talked to anyone about it, is that everything that is like given to me in life is undeserved.
Okay.
And this has given me this sentiment has given me immense joy. And it sounds like when you first say...
I don't know why I'm happy about it when you just say it. Like,
yeah.
I haven't even processed it yet, and I think it's fun.
But it's a very... it's like a little bit of a backwards way. And it's a little provocative. But it's a backwards... Like, when you start thinking about it, in the way I think about it, is it leads you to... Like, if like this conversation now I'm having is undeserved, if like I'm sitting in a comfortable couch, if this is all undeserved, then I should be grateful that it's still given to me. Because like, it's so easy to get caught up in wanting so many things in life, and but there are like no nothing is certain. Like everything could just be taken away. Like life is crazy. Everything could just be taken away. Could start a war or something, and you could lose everything. And you have no right to have a good life. Like some people have shit lives or shit circumstances and everything. And so this,
But is it like, do you think everything, like just that statement, everything given to you is undeserved, does it exclude things that you've like worked for or like earned, or are those still things which are kind of like given? Because it's a little bit like a language thing maybe.
Yeah, I mean it almost has some religious thing over it, given.
Yeah.
But I more so mean, I think I mean it in that
like
way.
Opportunities kind of.
Yeah. Because that's when it becomes a little paradoxical maybe.
Yeah.
Because if you work really hard for something, I think it's still...
I think it still works.
Yeah, and it's still given to you in a sense, because you can work really hard and you can get really unlucky and get completely fucked. And yeah. But sometimes you do need to act like you deserve something, I think. And it's also connected to, I think, self-confidence.
Yeah.
Like you sort of, I think self-confidence, it can come just naturally if you're really competent, then you will just act self-confidently. And I guess maybe you will have a right to act that way because of your competence. But you can also trick yourself and sort of act self-confidently, even though maybe you're not completely self-confident. And through acting, it kind of becomes reality. I've noticed this when I have a difficult project. Like if I I always talk about climbing, but it's like...
Yeah, but that's the anchor.
It's one way of explaining something more, a wider thing. A wider thing.
Yeah.
If you like driving up to the crag or whatever, if you sort of talk yourself up, like, I feel really good today. I feel like I'm going to make some good links. Or like maybe like, yeah, I think I'm going to send it today.
Yeah.
Or just, I feel great. I feel so strong. Or afterwards, if you had a suboptimal session and maybe you're a little bit disappointed, but you drive home and you talk with your friend and you're like, I felt that was pretty good. Like, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but we put in the work, we did. And then you're just gonna feel good.
Yeah.
Like in the former case, when you're driving there and talking yourself up, you literally perform better. In like almost always. And when you drive back and you try to think of it in the best way, you just feel better afterwards, and you feel like, I did progress today. And even if I didn't do any progress, still worth it, because this is something worth doing, and like and then you're gonna do better the next time. And it's almost, I think I've realized that some people are super positive and they just do this without thinking.
Yeah.
I think I have a tendency to be like really harsh on myself.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. And so, but then you need to be like a bit pragmatic about it, and like, okay, that was not, I'm not happy with that, but still it was good because I learned something, and it was like given the circumstances, it was the best thing I could do. Because that puts you in the best place to moving forward.
Yeah.
So there is something to like believing a lot in yourself and acting as if you deserve it.
Yeah.
But you need to know that actually you don't. So yeah, you always
down a little bit
yes,
once in a while.
But you should always have this humility underneath it, knowing that.
I think like this idea of just being grateful for everything is nice also.
And it's
That you
very
think you
easy
don't
to
deserve.
say,
Yeah.
but it's so difficult.
Mm.
At least I think so.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that also links a little bit to that conversation we had on the way home yesterday about how when you stop caring so much about something is often when you start performing the best at it.
Yeah.
Like, that confidence maybe comes from that idea as well. Like, I'm just going to go and do the best I can on the boulders today, and it'll be fun. Like,
Yeah.
instead of, fuck, I really need to send, like, what if my training wasn't good enough? It's like this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something to do with it. Like,
But I feel like that's somehow not even confidence, because you're just, it's like you become so present. Or I don't know if it's,
no, I don't think it's like,
but it's definitely
exact link there,
tangential
but-
to
yeah,
like
exactly. I was more trying to think of how we couldn't really figure out why, when you stop caring so much, the performance gets better.
yeah.
And maybe it is something to do with that, like, level of confidence. Because if you have those thoughts, like, which start drifting into the negative of, like, yeah, maybe I haven't actually prepared well enough for this, or
Yeah.
I feel like shit today and it's not going to go. Then you've started caring about the thing and, like, expecting an outcome, kind of. Whereas if you just go and, like, I'm going to climb a boulder and whatever the fuck happens,
Yeah.
then there's not so much negativity that can come into that. I don't know.
No,
It's tricky.
I wonder. I feel like it also has a lot to do with being present. Because if you're truly present, then you can't really be negative. I don't know if you can be positive either, but it's like being completely present in the moment still seems to be positive.
Yeah.
Like usually you feel good, but you can't. You're not like thinking positive thoughts because you can't think a thought because then you're not present.
Yeah.
You're just like taking in every thought as it is. And maybe that, and like it makes sense then that if you're completely present, like then you're focusing completely on moving as well as possible. Or in a conversation, you're talking the best and the most, like it just flows when you don't think about it. But it's strange. It is strange because if you start thinking about how you speak, then you start speaking worse
fucked.
and you get caught up and it's the same thing in climbing.
Yeah.
So that's also strange because when you're completely present, you're focusing the most on the movements, but you're not really thinking about. You're not maybe you're not looking at it, you're just being it. And maybe it's the same way with conversation and lots of other stuff.
Yeah. That makes me think about the purple slab that you tried yesterday. Like the men's one, or yeah, it was men's one, I think, from the comp.
Yeah.
And when I first test climbed that, I was so fucking zoned out. Like, I was tired and we'd been building all day. And it was like, got on the start without thinking about, like, I need to put foot pressure on this and, like, drop my heels and smear and, like, position my body over to the left and all this kind of garbage that you usually think about when you're climbing.
Yeah.
And it just went on, like, 100% instinctually, and it felt, like, really easy. Not to brag about it or something weird, but like, I just gave it one go and, like, didn't think at all, and did the moves, and then
hiked it.
Yeah, I didn't get to the top, but
yeah,
did better than my next goes when I was actually trying to think about the boulder and, like, decide how it should be for the competitors, and does this volume need to turn by 5, all this, like, technical shit. 5 centimeter tweak on or 1 centimeter tweak on the volume, things like this.
Yeah.
So for sure, this, like, it's like instinctual or like mindlessness kind of, but you still have a goal.
Yeah, because that's also the paradoxical thing, because it's mindless, but it's like how do you say?
like directed in some ways.
Directed but mindless.
Yeah.
And that's paradoxical.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's super strange.
You also get this thing when you do like a really hard boulder or finish your project that you just can't even remember like what you did. Like you're just at the top all of a sudden. It's like,
yeah,
I guess I moved somehow and held on to some stuff, but
yeah, like now it's the same thing. If I think back to this Nattliga havsfärden, the 8C thing I did, I think now I basically only remember the video I've seen of it.
yeah. It's almost like you black out for a little while and then...
Yeah, it's like I don't, when I think about it, I don't see it from like first person perspective, grabbing the holds.
Yeah.
I sort of see it from third person, but I think that's like from the video.
Yeah. No, but even now that you say that, like when I was telling that story about the slab, it was as if I was watching myself climb it. It wasn't like my face was against the wall, like, oh, I'm going to scrape my nose off if I fall here, kind of.
Yeah.
It was like someone standing behind me and like, yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's some disconnect. It feels like a disconnect, but maybe what it is just complete presence or something.
Yeah.
And it's just most of the time we're disconnected, which is quite interesting. Because that makes me think of a meditation. I've been doing before I went to Font, I did a lot of meditation. I think I meditated every day for a month. And there's definitely things. I think there is something to that. Learning to be present.
Yeah. Well, that is also a kind of mindless thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of meditation it was, but
it's the goal is just, or there isn't a goal.
Yeah.
But there is sort of a goal that you shouldn't. You should just let everything. I think you could say there is a goal. To just not think about anything. And just observe. And that's also paradoxical because they say that even if you start thinking and... I think you can do it wrong. At least the guy I listened to said, because if you just space, it's not about just spacing out. You're supposed to concentrate and try and just not think anything. And if a thought comes, just like look at it. And avoid getting completely filled up by it. Just like look at it, and then if you look at it, it starts to just disappear. But there's sometimes I also feel like it's too. I think I like doing meditation in certain times. Like right now, I'm not meditating, but every once in a while I become, because you can do it anytime. Like when walking, you can just be really aware of how you put your feet.
Yeah.
And there's also this thing, which, do you know Hampus? He climbs here a bit. He's also been doing lots of meditation. And he told me about, I think it's also about looking at things without seeing. No, this is completely new. Looking at things without seeing like the stereotype of it or seeing your image of it. Like look at the chair. I almost said stool. Look at your stool.
Could do that as well.
Yeah, without having a picture of, oh, this is a chair. Just like look at it, and from this angle, it looks kind of weird. You know.
Yeah, true.
But if you just look at it without thinking, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a chair, and it looks like this. So, and he described to me that he had this moment where I think he was driving, and suddenly everything was really vivid. And I think maybe I had something similar. I don't know, but I think it is when you stop seeing like the stereotypes of things, or like you stop seeing all the like, this is a lamp, this is a lamp, this is a lamp, this is a chair, a table. You just see a mesh of colors and stuff, and it becomes really vivid because that's how it actually is.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you're just a little mindless, it's just clouded by all of these concepts. Like there's a bunch of chairs here, there's a table, there's
Just clutter everywhere.
yeah, and stereotypes also make you have, like we talked about, have certain preconceived notions about, this is a chair, you can sit on it.
Yeah. It's only used to
and
sit.
such stereotypes about chairs. But when you like release all of those things, it's just something completely new. And maybe they're still true, the stereotypes and stuff, I don't know. But they're not like, I think they're necessary in your life, obviously, but you can just see things without all of the baggage.
Yeah.
And just like, this is how it actually is, maybe. Or maybe if
At
you
least giving yourself the option to.
Yeah. Maybe this is how a complete newborn would see it. Because they don't know anything about the concepts of, and they just see like, there's like these crazy pipes in the roof, and there's just like
Yeah, I guess that's why they're always just looking around, like.
yeah, and there's
Holy
like a
fuck, what is
huge
all this
room
stuff?
out here with people climbing on the walls
Yeah.
on like colorful plastic stuff. What the fuck? Yeah, it's quite cool, I think.
Yeah.
You can see it that way.
I went to the Science and Technology Museum, or whatever it's called here, with my dad when he was in Malmö before. And they had this machine where you put on like two headset things, and there was like a ball or something in the middle, which you could roll back and forward with your thoughts, kind of. And the thing was that the person with the clearest mind, like the least thoughts,
Oh wow!
would win the game by either pushing the ball towards the other. I can't remember how it worked exactly. That was kind of interesting.
I wonder how that works.
That's very much like the. Yeah, I don't know.
You just need to empty your mind.
Very Matrix.
Yeah.
It was a bit busted, like all the connection things were a bit scuffed and like.
Yeah.
So it didn't work so well, but it would be cool to try it if it was new.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah. Matrix is a good movie. We're just gonna continue forever. Maybe we should round it off. Thank you a lot for talking to me, Scott.
Yeah, it was super nice.
It was awesome.
Thanks for having
It was
me.
nice having a very relaxed conversation. Yeah. Thank you.